Wake up! I'm Doug, and this is the Taste and Sensibility channel. And today on Coffee Review number 23, we are looking at Java, a single origin coffee from Java. You know, that island that's got a funny shape in the middle of the Indian Ocean and this whole string of islands where you'd never remember their names? This is from a coffee growing region that's so established and old that it's synonymous with coffee. So let's get pouring, and it can cool off while I show you this region on a map. So there's my two tasters. Ooh, this is so complicated. And my favorite source of coffee information these days is Coffee Obsession, a wonderful book by Annette Malver. And looking at Java, it's got a 2-page spread because it's so important. This coffee comes from the blue Sunda Highlands. And Mount Sunda is somewhere over here, near Bending. So this is the coffee growing region where today's Java single origin comes from. Most of coffee grown in Java is Robusta, so it's 90% Robusta here and 10% Arabica. But this is one of the regions where they're growing more and more Arabica, and that's where Smoking Beans got this coffee. This is one of my older bags of coffee I got from Smoking Beans, 4-pound bag, maybe 3 years ago. And this has different varieties mentioned. Linny S. Typica Jember from Blue Sunda Highlands, 1100 to 1300 meters, grade 1, whatever that is. And then Gilling Basa is the wet hull method they use for processing, which is a local name for the wet hull process. And it gives tasting notes and no roast level recommendations. But I was shooting for a dark roast when I roasted these on 9.2, it says here. And I got the beans nice and uniformly dark. They're really splotchy and dark green and uneven, inconsistent in their coloration when they're green, but they turn out really nice, dark, consistent brown. And I just got a speck of oil on every 10th bean maybe. So I just barely hit second crack. I was shooting for something a little darker, a little shinier, but no big deal. I think we'll taste everything. So I've been picking up more earthy flavors and less fruity flavors in these Indonesian coffees and things from Vietnam, India. And I think it's going to continue today. Smells deep and dark and rich. Smells earthy. Let's see if it's too hot to go in. Wow. It is pretty full-bodied. Wow, big fat mid-palate. Tiny bit of tartness. There might be a little bit of acidity, which isn't real common in these Indonesian coffees, but it's not always absent either. And there's very little in the way of top notes. No floral, no fruitiness. Nothing real sweet on top. But there's a sweetness down below in the mid-palate and in the earthy notes. So it's hard to untangle and untie. The earthiness is really nice. And there might be some cocoa in there. It's hard to say. But the mid-palate is this big, huge, fat thing with, I don't know, old wood or spices. Yeah, baking spices. Cloves and allspice and brown things you sprinkle into baking things. It's not quite cinnamon. Cinnamon's a little too sharp and aggressive for what I'm tasting here. It's faint, distant, rounded off, but it is that clove, nutmeg, cardamom type of vibe for the spice notes. It's getting a little more woody as it cools off. So I'm getting some really nice, complex flavors that I don't often get in my coffees. So as I said, I got this bag about 4 years ago, and apparently it didn't really grab me at the time, or I couldn't roast it well. My roasting didn't grab me at the time, but now we're coming back around to all these Indonesian and Eastern Hemisphere things, and I'm finding them very tasty. I probably wasn't roasting dark enough back then, and I've been pushing myself to get them darker, and they're turning out really well. Light and medium roast are really good for Western Hemisphere, Central American things. Most of the time, saves all the fruity notes and the sweetness. But over here, it doesn't seem to hurt most of them to go pretty dark. So I must like this one because it's gone already. So this is just a rich, full-bodied fat flavor. Big, earthy, rustic. Body is full. It's a little mouth coating, and this has gone through a paper filter. It's got some oiliness and mouthfeel. It's not just watery. So I'm liking this a lot. Took it to work yesterday, so I got to sample it there for several hours. And it got my attention real fast. So I'm still not picking up any fruitiness unless it's some kind of really dark wine or dark prune or date or something like that, but there's not much of that. So this is a wonderful specialty Arabica from Java, from the Blue Sunda Highlands. I got this from Smoking Beans so long ago I can't remember anything. I think the current Java offering is actually from a different grower or co-op right now because the varieties, the altitudes, all the details were a little bit different than what I put on the screen here today and mentioned. But the price is not bad. When you get the unroasted beans wholesale, a 2-pound bag is $10.40. So it doesn't cost very much to play around with unroasted beans. If you have a way to roast them and want to do some exploring, it's very inexpensive, unless you screw it all up. And people do it in skillets, people do it in hot air poppers. They've even got coffee roasters designed around the hot air popper principle that are specialized to coffee roasting. So it's amazing what's out there in the world. So this is wonderful. I'm liking it, and I won't have any trouble getting rid of the rest of this bag. Very satisfying. It doesn't get raspy or nothing gets worse as it cools off. So even at room temperature, this would be pretty tasty stuff. So I'm going to move on to Tasting with Cream. And that leads into the second topic of the day, which is things we add to coffee. Additions that we do, not the roaster, provider. So I've been adding half and half to a lot of my coffees as I taste them, just because it's a note I like. It's a special thing I like to do to darker, richer coffees. Edit. And it's a desserty thing for me. I know lots of people are really used to sugar and cream and other flavors, hazelnut or vanilla, or different things. And it's often due to the fact the quality of the coffee that they're buying and making, maybe their brewing methods, really make it necessary to add stuff to it to make it taste better. If you get your coffee game right, you don't need to add much stuff. Unless you want to. And I want to add cream every once in a while. It gives a whole different experience and mouthfeel. Wow. So this one's very buttery, rich, creamy, and it goes a little bit chocolatey. So it's like that caramely chocolate milk that I mention so often when cream's added. But the second topic today is going to be adding things, adding cream and creamers, adding sweeteners, adding liqueurs and spirits, or just flavors. So I totally approve of adding cream. Actually, half and half. It's not quite cream. So there's some sweetness from the milk, and there's some butter fat from the cream part. Yeah, it's really good. I need to remind you to like this video down below, give it a thumbs up, leave a question, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Click that bell and get notified when the new videos come out. These days it's been Mondays, or Tuesdays, or Wednesdays, depending how late I am on my editing schedule. But anyway, they do come out every week, and we want you to join us. So I think I'm going to clear off my little table here and pull out some creamers and sweeteners and syrups and other things, and we'll have a little session with more tasting of this very same coffee. Okay, so here we are at the creamer section. So I've been adding cream almost every time to my single origin coffees. But when you're in an office setting or a school or a church or something, what you usually end up with is some sort of non-dairy creamer or super pasteurized thing. Super pasteurized, half and half maybe. But Coffee Mate is totally non-dairy. So it's coconut oil and sugar and water with a few additives to make it all mix together. Emulsify and go in. So we're going to find out what this tastes like. When I am so used to cream, to half and half. Oh, this is going to overdo it. For my tiny little cup here. But I ought to get a good idea of the notes. If it's different than cream, let's find out. It does have a nice mouthfeel. It's silky. And it has a hint of the buttery flavor, buttery character that I've been getting from the half and half. But the flavor is really way short of what I've been tasting. But man, that's a good substitute. And if there's something wrong with your coffee where you really need to doctor it up, this is a step in the right direction, I would think. So if that works out well. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not spectacular, but it's going to enhance a lot of coffees and hide some flaws. It's not going to make a great coffee any better unless you're just a cream hound. So yeah, I would say that's not bad at all. That's okay. I wouldn't do it, and I don't know what I'm going to do with 23 more little creamer packs. Maybe I'll take them to work. Okay, so let's do that one. What's this next thing? International Delight. It's a flavored creamer. Should have read the ingredients before. Water, cane sugar, palm oil, and then all the other stuff over here. Shake each creamer before use, and then I gotta find a little pokey hole and break into it the right way. And shake like they say. And pour in this darker caramel colored. Oh, International Delight Hazelnut Creamers. Well, definitely sweeter. And the hazelnut's good and strong, and not too much. It's not filling the whole room with the aroma. It's hitting my palate about right. It's a tiny bit of a tartness. Might just be part of the flavoring. Maybe it's the brightness I tasted on the coffee. So, this is pretty good. It's not my wheelhouse. If I was going to do flavors, I might do hazelnut more than most. So I've had flavored coffees with a flavor built in to beans or ground coffees, and they tend to be really strong. This is a good level of flavor, and I've probably got more creamer in here relative to the coffee amount than some people use. So I approve of both of these things. Those are pretty good. Man, I'm going to have so much coffee by the end of this. Now we're moving on to sweeteners. And I have here golden light agave, blue agave syrup, and a single source honey, raspberry honey, meaning it's from raspberry blossoms that bees collected the nectar from. So there's a floral notes and fruity notes that are strong. And this coffee has a distinct absence of fruity notes. So we'll find out if they have a fight or if they go together like a nice blend. So I will do agave first, and I'm not a normal agave consumer. I'll measure it out in the spoon. Uh-oh, it says 1.4 times sweeter than sugar. I may have put in too much. No, that's not too much. That's a very neutral sweetener. It does not clash or conflict with anything. And the sweetness is very gentle. So I consume agave products in other contexts, but I don't really use it much as a sweetener because I don't really want things sweeter. But this doesn't clash with the coffee. I pick up the sweetness now. It's a little bit sugary, a little bit syrupy, but it's nice and light and unobtrusive. So I can't argue or complain about that one. Oh, I need a discard pile here. Okay, next coffee. It's quite a bit. I'm going to use quite a bit of this Winter Park Raspberry Honey from the Nectar of Flowers. So it's not a flavoring added to the honey, it's raspberry blossom nectar gathered by bees. I'll use a good shot to try to get some of that flavor. It's more than I put into the agave syrup. We'll see. Oh man, I'm starting to sweat a little bit in here. From all this coffee I'm drinking, this caffeine's gonna get me overheated. So the coffee's hot and the caffeine's increasing all my physiological activity. Oh wow. Yeah, I can smell the raspberry and the floral components here. Very flowery and fruity. The tartness of a raspberry is kind of in here. And a lot of the aroma notes and flavor notes. So it's flowery and fruity. It's sweeter by quite a bit. And the raspberry notes made it through just fine. It's not clashing with any of the coffee flavors. It's just occupying a space that's currently unoccupied by the coffee itself. It doesn't have any floral or fruity notes. I added some and it's great. So interesting honeys and other kinds of syrups would be really an interesting thing to explore. So I don't usually add sweeteners. So I can think of molasses or sorghum or all sorts of things that might have interesting results in coffee. So there's probably 50 different sweeteners and 100 different coffees. I don't want to get started in that, do I? Whew. Gotta cool off and change my set around to hold a few bottles of things now. Okay, back with the bottle flavors. So I hope the coffee holds up. I might be running out here. So I don't really know how much of this stuff to add because I don't use it. But it says the serving size is 2 tablespoons. Maybe that's a good place to start. So I'm going to have a bigger spoon here. A couple of these might approximate a tablespoon. Well, it's a small serving, so I don't need that much. This is Torani hazelnut syrup. And I'm sure a vast proportion is sugar. Pure cane sugar. And then water and flavors. Okay. So I'm sure it's doing plenty of sweetening besides the hazelnut flavor. It may or may not be too strong. Wow, 80 calories in the 2 tablespoon serving, it says on the back here. Oh, wow. Nice flavor. That's a good hazelnut flavor. It's probably too sweet. So the amount of hazelnut's not overwhelming. It's a good note. It's got a tartness to it like the flavored creamer did too. So the flavors are really good quality. I'm getting used to the sweetness maybe. That's how it tricks you. Resist. Even though I'm being seduced by the sweetness, it's a good flavoring and not too strong, and you can control it yourself. But you can't separate the sweetness and the flavor. So that might be the disadvantage of this, but if the sweetness level is okay for you, that's a good thing all day long. I think this was like $6 or $8 at a store. I don't remember the price, but they're smaller bottles. I wish I'd bought a smaller one. Boy, all this coffee is really making me hyper, isn't it? So maybe I should quit drinking this caffeine and sugar and move on to the next one. Let's find out if I have a last cup of coffee. Wow, just made it. Okay, I can keep going with the video then. Now, next thing. This is famous for going into coffee. Bailey's Original Irish Cream. And they don't give a serving size, so I'll just do what I want. Crusty, sugary, milk crust. Who knows what else is falling in there. So I will try to dole out a couple of spoonfuls to go in here. If you don't know, this is alcoholic, a liqueur, an Irish cream liqueur. That is 17% alcohol, so it's not too strong. It's just like a strong wine. But don't drink too much. Don't drink it at work. Oh, wow. Nice, nice, nice. Creamy. Creamy. I don't really know the flavors in this thing. There's sweet, maybe caramely and vanilla notes. It's just very seductive. Any kind of drink that you make with it ends up being way too attractive. So I'm getting a little whiff of the alcohol vapors, but it's not off-putting. But this is kind of like ice cream, kind of like creamy desserts. It's the right mix of creaminess, sweetness, other flavors. I don't know if there's anything nutty in there. I don't really know the flavor profile of Bailey's. I just know everybody likes it and they put it in everything. Is there an almond note or pecan or nutty? I know I'm getting vanilla and caramel vibes, so that's an interesting thing that people put into coffee and everything else. So I'm going to have an episode later where I'm just doing coffee and spirits. So we'll dive a little bit more into liqueurs. And then finally, some people just dump whiskey in, and it's famously Irish whiskey. Come on, get out of there. Guess I should measure this also. I'll use a spoon to not have too much. And tell you what, this is more than 17% alcohol, so I'm going to get a big pop of alcohol coming off the hot coffee. So this is 43% ABV. I'm not going to lick the spoon, but I will mix it up some. So I might gasp and cough. That's the Jameson Black Barrel. I'm using this instead of regular Jameson just because it's got more of a flavor punch. Whiskey drinkers, I think Jameson's often a little light on the flavors, and this has a little bit more because of the way they age it. And the 43% is stronger than Jameson's. So there's alcohol notes on the nose. And yeah. It doesn't add sweetness. It's the first thing in a long time it didn't add any sweetness. I can pick up the whiskey. I can tell it's Irish whiskey. And that will do the trick. You will notice it in a few minutes. In 20 minutes, you'll know you've been drinking some adult beverage. So that's working well with the coffee notes too. It's a kind of a savory, it's not all that sweet in the coffee or the whiskey, so they go well together. They're meshing well. I can sort of taste some wood from the whiskey. I think I got smoke there, which is odd because I don't get it that much on the whiskey itself. But I better sign off before my caffeine level goes so high, or alcohol level goes so high I can't continue. So go ahead and give it a thumbs up down below, subscribe to the channel, click that bell to get notified, leave comments and questions, and come back for another coffee review somewhere in Indonesia. Cheers.